Hey guys, Randy here, and today we're going to have another video on Ransom Shield. And today I'd like to focus on a program that we call Site Tools. Now, Site Tools for Ransom Shield is a program that allows IT administrators to control the installation process for all of their users with Ransom Shield. So I think to get started here, what we can do is just go ahead and do a normal install. So I've got the Ransom Shield installer up, and the first thing we're going to see here is our installation screen where it's asking us, do we want to do a full system backup or data backup? We'll choose full system. Next, we have the choice of creating a mirror or backing up to an image file. So we're going to go ahead and choose the default mirror. Next, we can choose the backup device. So I've got a SanDisk Extreme connected to USB, and we'll choose that. Next, you see all the options that we can have in the program. So we don't necessarily need to go through all of these, but let's just choose the defaults. And actually, let's go ahead and choose scheduling. So you can see the scheduler and how that works. And I'm not actually going to schedule anything, so let's just click next. At this point, we can create a data vault, and we can also have the program tell us what the disk configuration is going to look like. And this is really kind of for advanced users who want to change the way the disk is set up on the external device, so they can create partitions and make some changes here. If they want to go back to the defaults, they just click this button. At that point, they can click next, and we can create BitLocker encryption on the drive. And this is actually full disk encryption. In addition to setting a password, we can create a recovery key, which is a 48-digit code that can be used to unlock the drive if the password is forgotten. And there's some other BitLocker options here. We'll just kind of click through this. And at this point, we're basically told, okay, the next step is to start the backup process. So what I'm going to do here is just go ahead and cancel this. And as you can see, there was a lot going on in the installation process. So if I'm an administrator, I don't necessarily want all of my users to go through all those steps. So this is the Site Tools program. This is only for administrators, and as we said before, this is to allow controlling how Ransom Shield will get installed. So just quickly going through here, these are all the screens that we saw during the installation process. So if we don't want to allow backing up to image files, if we don't want them to choose a different target drive, just the one that's connected, we can disable that screen. Backup options, all of those options that were on that screen are over on this side. So we can either hide that screen or we can show that screen to the users. If we hide it, we can pre-choose all of those defaults for the user. And we can do the same thing for BitLocker. So BitLocker, let's say rather than allowing users to set their own password, the administrator wants to auto-generate the passwords for the user. He wants to hide that whole process during the install, and he wants those passwords just sent to his location that he decides where he wants to store all of those passwords. And more than likely, I would assume that it's a location that most users can't get to, just the administrator. And then let's see. So let's go ahead and not allow VHDs. Let's not allow target drive selection. Let's not allow BitLocker. data vault. Let's not even allow access to the options. So we're just going to hide everything. And let's see, let's go ahead and say we want to choose ransomware protection. We want to create a startup boot menu. And let's say no schedules. So that looks pretty good. Now at this point, to configure BitLocker, we'd go ahead and click the BitLocker button. If we wanted to allow our users to create their own passwords, we would choose this first option. And as part of allowing the users to create their passwords, the administrator can create a default password for the first go through of the software, and then users later can change their password. But for our demonstration, what we want to do is auto-generate those passwords. So really the point of this is we want to protect the backup drives in a way that we're protecting the company from theft. So clearly there's going to potentially be intellectual property on the backup drives, and probably the biggest fear that admins are going to have if we're installing external devices on these systems is the drives walking out the door and potentially that intellectual property being stolen. So what we're going to do is we are going to set up a system where the drives are automatically encrypted in the background. The passwords are automatically generated and sent to the administrator, so only he has access to them. And optionally, we're also going to choose ransomware protection where the backup drive will be hidden from the system. Now, if we choose to set up our environment where we're hiding these passwords, one thing that does need to happen is the software will store those passwords locally with the Ransom Shield installation. Now, the reason it does that is because we want to be able to schedule unattended backups to the backup drive. We really don't want the users to do anything. They don't have to ever touch the drive. They don't ever have to touch the Ransom Shield software. And so to do that, the administrator could create scheduled backups that occur during off hours. And what the software will do is it will first enable the drive so it can be seen by the system. So it'll turn off the ransomware protection. It'll decrypt the locally stored password. So the password, even though it's stored locally, it's not in the clear. So if you knew where to find that password, all you'd be seeing is an encrypted string that won't let you unlock the drive. The string has to be decrypted. So the software, when it launches the backup and it enables the drive, turns ransomware protection off, it decrypts the locally stored password, it unlocks the drive, performs a backup. Once the backup is completed, it relocks the drive, and then ransomware protection kicks back in and the drive is hidden again. So that's the process of running a backup to a locked drive in the background. So at this point, let's go ahead and go to our BitLocker security key path, and this is where we're going to send our passwords once they're created. And so again, I'm just going to go ahead and choose a folder on another machine that's here in my office. So once this machine gets backed up, its password and its 48-digit code will get sent to this location on another machine, and that the file that gets created that has the password and the code, that will also be encrypted. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and say OK, close this, and just to finish out a discussion on our discussion on site tools, the last thing that the administrator can additionally do to protect the backup drives is he can choose to exclude certain folders and files from the backup process. So let's say that every machine has a folder that has intellectual property in it, and maybe that folder is backed up to the cloud. So the admin doesn't want that folder getting backed up to the external device. So if you choose to browse to locate those folders, you can basically pick an unlimited number of folders and files that you would exclude from the backup process. And of course, because we're creating this install with our site tools, all the machines that install the software will have those same exclusions. Now, to go a step further, if the administrator doesn't want any data going to the backup drive, he can choose this option down here, which is to exclude all data. So what that would do, in a sense, is create what we call a minimal boot drive. So the backup would only have the operating system and the apps, and it wouldn't have any of the data. So we would assume all of the data is in a cloud or is in OneDrive or whatever is the backup of choice to the cloud for the administrator. So at that point, the drive is bootable once the backup finishes. So you can still start directly from the backup drive. Your Windows operating environment is present. All the apps are there. At that point, you would just need to be able to access all the data from wherever it's backed up to in the cloud. Okay, so at that point, now that we've chosen all the options that we want to use for our install, we click Write Settings, and that creates this file on our desktop called siteinfo.ini, and that file is right here. And now let's go ahead and rerun the installation process. And while this is uninstalling, just as an explanation of how Site Tools works, this is the installation program. This is the latest build of Ransom Shield. And if this site info ini file lives in the same folder as the installation program, then all of the options that we've selected in Site Tools will be applied during the installation process. So at this point, we'll go ahead and do our install. And I've actually got this running on my other monitor. And here, I'll drag this over. And so I haven't clicked anything yet as part of the install process. And as you can see, the entire installation process was just skipped over. So the user didn't have to do anything. All the user has to do at this point is just say, yes, I'm ready to start the first backup. So all of the options that we applied in Site Tools got applied to the install. So we didn't see any of these screens. Our options, the defaults were pre-selected, and then also because we chose to auto-generate passwords, BitLocker is set up in the background now. So the very first time I launch a backup, the automated password that was set for this machine will get applied to the backup process. And you can't see, but on my other PC is where the password ended up landing. So that's in a file that has the password and the 48-digit security code, and they're both encrypted in that file. So at that point, going to go ahead and cancel, and what I'd like to do now, since we don't want to wait through a whole backup, is I'm going to go ahead and bring up my Ransom Shield program here, and I just want to quickly do a little demonstration of ransomware protection. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose to create a data backup, and I'm going to go ahead and choose just a small folder to back up here. That looks good. We're going to back up to drive D, and we're going to turn ransomware protection on. So at this point I'm going to say OK, and let's go ahead and launch a backup. We're going to perform a full backup. I'm going to say backup now, and this backup process should be pretty quick. And now that it's finished, you'll see that our external drive is gone. So that sort of demonstrates ransomware protection in that now the user can't even see the backup drive. It's disabled and hidden from view. So this also demonstrates where if malware were to attack the machine, it's going to attack all the drives it can see, and the backup drive isn't one of those drives. So our backup drive should survive that malware attack, and if it did damage to the system, all we'd have to do is reboot, start off the backup drive, and we're back in business. So that, I think, is about it, and thanks. I appreciate you watching.